What's coming next for Odyssey, if you can share already? What are the plans for it? What else are you going to teach people about in this fantastic way?
Yeah, so one of the most highly requested courses is a Federation course. So that's going to be the next one out very soon. We're just about to release into early access. So that'll be closed for now until we get some feedback, and then we'll record the videos and release it to the general public. So very excited about that course. And then developers who complete that course will be awarded the professional level certification. So the second certification in our series. And then from there, like everything we do on my team is just kind of linked back to developer feedback. We've gotten a lot of requests for like advanced client courses, also like advanced server courses on, caching and auth. Mobile is another area where I think we're going to see some explosive growth in the next 1 to 2 years. We've been seeing just massive adoption of our iOS and Kotlin clients. And so we're looking into how we can craft a really awesome mobile experience for Odyssey. It's a little bit difficult because of the way that we run our code challenges right now. We do their like serverless function with Netlify, which works really great for JavaScript, but not so much for like iOS and Kotlin. So we're just trying to figure out how we can maintain the quality there and still provide a really awesome experience for mobile developers. If anyone has feedback on courses that they want to see, you can just like reach out to me on Twitter or drop a line in the Odyssey feedback survey. We literally read every single one. So yeah, we want to hear from you what you want to learn next.
Yeah, there's so many good developer resources out there. Back when GraphQL was just starting, people were relying more on tutorials and blog posts and workshops. And it's so cool to see just the proliferation of content and so many different mediums too. Not everyone's a video person. Not everyone's a reading type. Most people are do it or, they want to get their hands dirty. So with like so many new developers learning GraphQL, like what do you think the hardest part is now understanding the stack? Like where do people get tripped up the most, do you think?
Yeah, that's a good question. I think it kind of depends on where you're coming into the GraphQL ecosystem from, right? So maybe you are a client developer and there's already a graph at your company. And so you're kind of figuring out, okay, how can I connect my app to the graph? That's maybe a different set of concerns where, if you're a developer at a company that doesn't have a graph and now you're, building your first schema and you are trying to connect that to your app. So like that's a different set of concerns. I think there are always kind of the evergreen topics like caching and security and auth that tend to trip people up, not because there aren't solutions, because there certainly are, but because there's like maybe a lot of outdated like blog posts and just like opinions in the general broader, JavaScript ecosystem that like you can't do caching with GraphQL or like GraphQL is insecure, you know what I mean? So I think, maybe some of those like outdated opinions can send learners down the wrong path. So yeah, I think, it really just depends like where you're coming into it from, what are the main concerns for you, and then that kind of influences like how you learn GraphQL and your journey going forward.
That makes a ton of sense. I've never actually thought about the different personas going into GraphQL. It's fascinating to hear that you thought, obviously you have, it's your job, right? But it's really fascinating to hear. One more question about this education community topic. How have you seen the community shift? If you think back to the very early days of your Major League Soccer first GraphQL experience to now, what have been the biggest changes that you've observed if you compare those two experiences? And what do you think is coming next for the GraphQL community?
Yeah, so I think when I first started out, like things still felt a little bit like bleeding edge. There were, fewer companies like doing it in production and making it like their entire company's strategy. There was a lot of like tribal knowledge being passed down through blog posts and like conference talks and GitHub issues. So, I think the community and the ecosystem was maybe a little bit more fragmented, a little bit more experimental, but that was also really fun and exciting too. And I think it allowed a lot of innovation to take shape. Now we're seeing such an explosive growth in the GraphQL ecosystem, that it's not just coming from the, JavaScript and React developers anymore, right? We're seeing more mobile developers who are interested in the graph. We're seeing more back-end developers who might not be, familiar with the JavaScript and the React ecosystem, but they're, coding in Kotlin or Python and Ruby, and now they're getting really excited about the graph as well. We're seeing more DevOps folks getting excited about the graph and seeing what it can do for their company. We're seeing more, engineering leaders and directors and VPs investing in the graph and making it their engineering org strategy after hearing how, companies like Netflix and Walmart and Expedia and PayPal have all had such success with the graph. So I think we're entering a new phase of maturity where, it's not just this bleeding edge experimental thing anymore. Real companies are investing in it, having success. There's so much innovation and excitement happening in the ecosystem, and I can only see it growing and taking shape even more in the years to come.
Yeah, it used to be the wild, wild west back then.
Oh, yeah.
On what to do on your day one and which libraries to use, which people to listen to. And now, there's GraphQL for Java, Go, and iOS and Android, which back then you'd kind of have to hack together with your own HTTP clients.
Totally.
So it's crazy. We're not even in that naive world anymore. We're in this kind of stable world. And I guess the future is just more people versus more things that are innovating as much. It's just more ubiquity is probably where we're headed. And I think that's such a bright future for your company, for all companies that are involved with GraphQL, and cough, cough, Graph CDN for caching and stuff.
Oh, yeah. Just touching on your point of people, Abhi, I think we're going to see more GraphQL adoption from not just developers, right? I've heard from designers who are using GraphQL data in their Figma mockups, and product managers who are using Explorer to just create queries without writing any code, right? So I think we're also not only going to see just more developers gravitating to the graph, but also just anyone who's technology adjacent starting to understand what the graph can do for their roles as well.
Kind of preaching to the choir, but I would concur. I think GraphQL is just going to keep growing. It's awesome for a reason.
Yeah.